My next question is, how do you sell music to people who are used to getting it for free? How did you learn that?
Wow, Josh, you're nailing this. How do I sell music to people that are used to getting it for free? Well,
GM, welcome to GM Good Music, the podcast that dives into the hearts and minds of music's most groundbreaking artists. I'm your host, Josh Savage, and today we're joined by Violetta Zironi, an incredible artist whose path has taken her from the stages of X Factor Italy to the forefront of the music NFT world. From her roots in Reggio Emilia to her exciting exploits in Web3, Violetta has been one hell of a pioneer in the music industry. Today, we'll uncover her unique musical journey and her forward-thinking approach to Web3. Vio, GM, how's it going?
GM, good music, good morning. Hi, Josh. I'm very good. Thank you so much for having me, for the kind words.
First, Vio, would love to know a bit more about your background, your early days of music, before we delve into the Web3 side of things. How did you get into music, would you say? How did it all begin for you as a kid?
Yeah, so I, like you mentioned, I grew up in Italy. That's where I'm from. And I early on, when I was very young, I must have been like 3 or 4 years old. I used to kind of play music with my dad. My dad can play music, and he's not a professional musician, but he has a band and everything. And so we would jam a little bit, him, my sister, and myself. And I think he picked up that I had like good pitch already when I was very young, and which is, something I'm sure you had too. We all could sing a little bit as we were kids. He picked up on it and said, okay, well, let's send you to children choir. So that's what I did. And then a couple years later, started taking piano lessons, did classical training for 10 years. And in the meantime, I started finding my sound, I guess, in my early teens. When I was in middle school, picked up a guitar, learned, started writing a few songs. And that's kind of how it all began in my teens. During high school, I was playing in a few bands. I was in a band with my dad and another guy, older guy. And we would play shows in like town fairs, around the city, and always in Italy.
How old were you when you did your first show?
14.
Crazy.
Yeah, 14. They threw me on a stage by myself.
How was that? Do you remember it?
I remember it. It was exciting. It was very exciting. I sang a cover, so I didn't have a song, an original song yet, but it was cool. I could see myself comfortable doing that, for sure. And that's kind of when it all started, and all the way through high school. That's what I did. In the summer, I would do shows here and there. And then when I was 18, I decided to go to X Factor and audition. And that's where it all kind of started professionally. So
yeah. And how was that experience, just kind of being thrown in the limelight? And you did really well as well, didn't you? You got as far as the final. Is that right?
Yes. Third place. So it was good. I mean, I loved it. I had so much fun, and I would go back and do it again, for sure. So, a lot of people are like, was that cringe or whatever? Yes, it was. It is TV. But at the same time, it did open a lot of doors for me, and I was exposed to millions of people, right off the bat when I was only 18. So it really did do a lot for me. The movies I shot later as an actor came because of connections I made through X Factor. A lot of the songwriters that I started working with afterwards for co-writing came because some of their friends saw me on TV. So it really gave me a big push from the beginning that I think a lot of people don't have, because, they have to start literally from the ground up. Whereas I went from my bedroom or the town fair stage to a big TV show stage. But the thing itself, it's definitely a TV show in a way that it is scripted. They want you to say certain things. There's cameras around you all day. So you can't really be yourself. I thought I was there for a singing competition, but really I realized that it was just a TV thing. And it was very good that it happened early in my career, because it taught me a lot, and I made a lot of mistakes, especially afterwards. When I signed to Sony Music, which is the label that had a partnership with X Factor, and they offered me one of those 360 deals with no advance. So it was a bad one. And there was a few little things that happened throughout the show, like big managers coming in and offering you a song that their other big artists wrote. And if you take it, they'd become your manager. If you didn't, they wouldn't. There would be these kinds of weird, things that I'm like, really? Do I have to? This is dirty. I shouldn't be that way. So it taught me a lot from the very early days. And so I'm grateful for that.
What do you think was the best lesson you learned from that?
Wow, I never thought about this. The best lesson I learned is to continue being yourself and not just bend because people are offering you things, because I tried my best to stay who I was and not change myself because of the script of the show or because there was this big manager coming to me. And at first, over the first few years after X Factor, I almost regretted that, because I thought if I'd been a little more flexible, if I'd been a little bit more open-minded, now maybe I would be in a different position. But that same stay yourself mentality is really helping me now, 10 years later. So I'm glad I didn't abandon it. And some of the lessons that I learned back then are still applicable now in the things that I do. So, yeah.
Fantastic. And where did that lead you to next after that? I mean, you were stuck with this deal, right? Tell me about your experience with record labels, what you think about working with labels, and how you got lucky in that situation.
Yeah, I definitely got lucky, although you wouldn't think so at the beginning, because this is what happened right after X Factor Final. I was invited to the label offices in Milan and convinced to sign a 5-album contract with this major label with no advance. And it was a 360 deal, which means they're entitled to a percentage to everything you do. Like, it doesn't matter what they procure for you. It doesn't matter. They're always going to take a big percentage. I was left with only 5% of my masters. Wow. So yeah, and still to this day, there's a few things that are still playing, like on commercials or whatever. I only make 5%, but that's okay, lesson learned. So the relationship, it was weird, because I didn't quite understand why they were doing that. What happened is I signed this deal. At first, they seemed to be really excited. They paid for me to record an EP. And then they slowly, but also quickly, lost interest in me very, very easily. And I was shelved pretty much. And I just wasn't understanding why they were doing that. You guys just spent like over 20,000 euro on me, which just doesn't even sound like a lot now, knowing how much they can spend on certain people and then still shelve them, right?
Yeah.
But I think for Italy, spending 20,000 euro on 5 songs, it's substantial, right? And I just wasn't understanding, why are you doing this? Why did you even sign me? What's your point? And nobody could give me an answer. It was really weird. They just wouldn't answer you, and they wouldn't answer to my emails. And I was just so frustrated. So I was with a label for a couple years trying to milk everything I could out of this relationship at the very least. And then after 2 years, I was ready to move on and realized that there was something in the contract where, they had to release my album. They couldn't just shelve it. It said we have to release within a certain amount of time. And so they didn't. And that allowed me to leave
Oh, great.
the contract, which is fortunate, like you said. And also, I didn't lose too much because I was only 20 years old when I
Yeah.
left the major, so I still had a lot of time.
And so after that, you moved to Berlin.
Well, after that, I stayed in Italy for a few months, almost a year, and I started performing up and down Italy nonstop. Like I was just playing all the time. And that's how I met Jack Simoretti, who
Mm,
took me on tour with him. British,
legend.
Italian singer songwriter. Yeah, he's amazing. You open for him too. And hanging out with him and kind of his band and his managers inspired me to move to London because I thought I had friends there and some connections. So that's where I moved. Started writing with people, that are really good singer songwriters, really introduced in the industry in London. And that's when I started really developing my sound. But then I quickly realized that London was A, way too expensive for me, and B, it's a really tough market, right? For especially for someone who's not British, who's trying to make it in the British music industry. Rightfully so, the British music industry prioritizes British people, and I get it because there's so many amazing artists in the UK. So that's when I heard that Berlin was a hot spot. I realized they had artist grants, and I was working with a manager at the time who lived in Berlin and decided to make my way over there. And that's when I met you.
Indeed.
Oh,
Yeah. Do you remember that when that was? It was what, summer 2018, I think.
something like that. Yeah.
Did you enjoy Berlin at first? Would you say?
At first, well, the first couple of times that I went, I thought it was, grim, dark,
Which it can be.
which it is. Yeah, it's dark, it's gray. I was there in the winter, it's definitely not one of the brightest, most sunniest places. But I love the atmosphere. I love that it seemed just a relaxed place, where you could do whatever you wanted and nobody really bothered you. And
Mm,
it was pretty cheap and they had all the support for artists. It's one of those places that maybe you're not, head over heels about, but it feels like home. Like it feels like a place where you can live. Because if you live in a place that's too fun, that's
mm,
too great, then you're going to be distracted all the time. Then you're not, it's very unlikely that it's really like that. Berlin felt like home from the beginning, even though it wasn't it wasn't similar to Italy. It wasn't anything, super sunny and nice and whatever. But I just felt good there, comfortable.
I would say Berlin can be too fun at times. I mean, it's the number one nightlife. It's basically the
Mm,
nightlife capital city of the world. And I think if you haven't found your calling and you haven't found what you love to do, you can get lost in it for sure. However, with us, like we just live and breathe music. We knew that's what we wanted to do, and we're driven and we're able to stay disciplined and focused. I think if you don't have that, it's a dangerous place to be, because you can find so many lost souls here. And I think it's good to get lost for a bit, but you do need to kind of get yourself out of that and find yourself. And I think Berlin can be great for that. But I think that's why so many people come and go through Berlin, because I think people just come and find themselves here and then go back to their own home country or to America, for example, and whatnot. So, but I love Berlin. I definitely see myself sticking around for a bit longer, at least. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I just love the history here. I love how international it is in Berlin, coming from quite an international background, and it's getting a bit more expensive now, but still affordable and like a good place to kind of settle for a bit and hit the ground running. Because I wonder, Vio, if we would have been able to explore the world of Web3 if we didn't live in Berlin. For example, if I lived in London, I don't know how I would have done it because London's so busy. You have to pay pretty high rent and work a couple of jobs to make ends meet if you're pursuing music. And Berlin kind of gives you that time to step back and create, if you have the discipline at least. Would you agree?
Yes, I would agree. I don't know if, about the Web3 thing. I definitely know that Berlin helped me like become who I am as a songwriter, and as an artist. I met some of my lifelong collaborators. I can safely say the people I've met in Berlin and I
Such as?
wrote, my favorite, such as, well, shout out to them, Michael Oakes. He's a legend, and he still lives there. And Ed Prozek, shout out to him too. They both live still in Berlin. And we met there, and since we met in 2017, and now it's almost 2024. We're still writing together, and I almost exclusively only write with them because I found my partners, my soulmates in writing. So we had lots of time to really, hone in on what is Violetta sound. Let's get it, and it worked. And if I lived in London, perhaps I couldn't have done that, maybe.
Maybe. So who would you say you are as an artist and a songwriter? Horrible question, but let's go with it.
Horrible question.
Every artist's nightmare.
I don't know who I am, Josh. In terms of genre, I really don't like to try to find the genre, right? Because it's never quite accurate. Whatever it is you're going to say, it never quite fully explains it.
Yeah.
So I try to, say, I try to combine things that I love the most, which is my Italian roots. I'm very proud, and more so than proud, because it's always weird to say you're proud. Imagine if you said I'm a proud Brit. That would be super weird.
Especially after Brexit.
Exactly. So, or a proud American, I mean, a lot of people say that, but it would be strange. So I'm not going to say I'm a proud Italian, but I love the Italian tradition and music. I love what came up until the 1960s in Italy. It all like comes from opera and everything. There's a lot of that. So that's just something I love to listen to in my free time. So naturally, it gets integrated a little bit in my songwriting, lyrically, melodically, especially. I love jazz a lot. I love movies. I love soundtracks. So I guess once you have all those elements, you can kind of maybe get an idea of who I am as an artist. So, but I can't define it with a genre.
Just listen to the bloody music. Problem solved.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. It's funny when people ask me that question, my answer changes depending on my mood and who I'm speaking to. So I might have like, if I'm like in a professional setting, I might be like, oh, I'm like I don't know, like an indie pop singer-songwriter, blah, 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 done this. Or if I'm like amongst mates, I'm like just a sad white boy and guitar. That's it. Yeah. So,
yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so maybe this is a good time to delve into, tell me how you even heard about NFTs, what your first thoughts about it, and your first steps into that space.
Yeah, I love this question because it gives me a chance to shout out my mom, who's the one who brought NFTs to my knowledge, which is quite unusual.
Cool mom.
Cool mom, absolutely. She is always informed about everything. I can't keep up. She just knows, and she may not do those things, but she knows they happen. She knows what they are. And here's what happened. Obviously, it was 2021, end of 2021, and we were just maybe barely coming out of the pandemic, right? It was still COVID.
Yeah.
And both you and I, right, we're struggling. We were talking about this all the time. We were used to performing a lot live and making our living that way. And then all of a sudden we couldn't anymore. And then it was 2 years later and still we couldn't do it. I personally was thinking of, being done with music as a career and moving on to something else, because I was 26 and I was like, I've been doing this for 8 years already. Like, it's not working out. So I'm ready to move on. But in July of that year, I decided to give myself one more year. I said, okay, I'm 26. When I'm 27 next year, in July, if something hasn't happened, then I'm moving on. In the meantime, I start to prepare for a potential move on, but also really, really push and do what I think needs to be done to get to that point. So I came to Nashville and recorded my album Moonshot, 5 songs EP. Started pushing it to labels again. No label wanted me. All the labels were like, where's your TikTok numbers? Where's your Spotify numbers? This genre is too old. Like, nobody wants to listen to this. I don't know. It was just like a bunch of excuses all the time. And I was like, it can't be possible that all this time that people like myself and you, Josh, have put in since we're babies, and our parents paying for piano lessons and all this research that we've done all comes down to a TikTok video going viral because you're getting lucky. That's ridiculous. Something that's out of your control. That made my blood boil. It seemed like it wasn't working out after I was pitching my album to the labels. I was like, I guess that's it. I don't know what to do. So I went home for Christmas, as we do, and told all this to my mom. I was just kind of venting with her, frustrated. And she's like, have you heard of NFTs? It's like you can put your music on the blockchain. And I'd never heard of blockchain before. I was like, what the hell is blockchain? Like, Web3, what? NFTs, what is it? So we start, like, during the holiday, the Christmas holidays, we spent about a week trying to dissect what it meant to do NFTs, just conceptually, philosophically, because I just couldn't grasp it. And in the meantime, I just started doing research. What is an NFT? How do you sell an NFT? Realize you could be on Discord and Twitter and all that. And then I was like, you know what? I have nothing to lose and everything to lose at the same time. I could give up my career, or I could try this.
Yeah.
And so I decided to try, and then I got back home to Berlin, talked to you. Turns out you're doing the same thing at the exact same time.
Yeah.
Which was lucky.
It's interesting though, because I feel like you could have potentially done really well with TikTok. But I completely get you just weren't drawn to that world and that reality, and that it wasn't for you. Why do you think the NFT stuff was more for you than TikTok?
I think a lot of people think that I could do well on TikTok because I can talk and like I can entertain. But the thing that I don't like about, right, because I host these spaces and I have, I can entertain and do things like that, and I can post pictures. And but one thing I really don't like about TikTok is that it's kind of cryptic in a way. Like it doesn't facilitate two-direction relationships, two-way relationships, right? It's very much I post, you comment, and that's the only interaction that we have. Yeah. And there's not really a conversation involved. Whereas Twitter, it is for conversations. Media is coming now. Elon Musk is pushing media. He wants to integrate everything. But it was born as a tweeting platform, like actually commenting, and for journalists and people to write thoughts, which inspires conversation and exchanges. Is meant for that. That's why a lot of young people don't use Twitter, because they can't write or read or think. It's so much easier to post a picture and do a little dance than it is to write an articulate thought. Yeah. But for me, it's the opposite. It comes more natural to write something than than posting a picture or being a model behind the screen. And I just don't like having to fully rely on an algorithm that is not revealed to me. I don't know how the TikTok algorithm works. I feel like I don't have control over it. I feel like I can't really target people like I can on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I guess with TikTok, it feels a bit more like a lottery. And with
Yes.
X, it feels like you can see the progress a bit more. And it's not like you're at this cap of like 200 to 300 views with every post, and you don't understand why exactly. And with old Twitter, now X, it feels like you can see the results, and I guess psychologically it's a bit better for your mental health. So
yeah,
you started learning about NFTs. Now tell me about your first steps. How did you get your head around it? That's the huge step first. And then how did you find out how it works? I mean, where does an artist even look these days if they are interested in exploring Web3?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it's great we're doing this podcast because podcasts are a great way to discover things. I remember one of the first things that was presented to me was a podcast, actually, where I heard a few of the top artists at the time. It was Dill, Domino, Latasha, Spotty Wi-Fi, Nifty Sax talking about this.
What podcast?
It was Mint Songs.
Oh, yeah, right. Cool.
Yeah, it was Mint Songs. And I just found it on Spotify, typing in NFT music or whatever. And I found that, and that was very inspirational because I could hear from artists directly their experiences. And it showed me that they were just artists like me that didn't feel like they fit in the traditional narrative, and they couldn't quite figure out why. And then they found this medium and realized their full potential, that they didn't, that they could be more entrepreneurial and more creative and more artistic with what they did, and put out their music and find fewer people that resonated more, rather than millions of people that just passively kind of listen to you. And that was very attractive to me because think about it. If you can't even reach 100 people, how can you reach 1 million? And a lot of people forget that there are steps before you get to that 1 million fans. You have to reach 10, and then 100, and then 1,000. And that was really attractive. And so for an artist who's really trying, or who's even just interested in looking into this, I would say listen to the podcast like this one. This is perfect. And then do a research on Google, and how can I sell an NFT? How do I sell an NFT? Because that's the most difficult part, right? Minting is not hard. You're going to figure it out. You're going to learn the technical aspect. It's fine. Don't let that intimidate you because you're going to learn. You have to be careful. Don't click any bad things or anything. Follow the steps. But the hard part is selling, as we both know. And that's something that musicians are not used to do, being salespeople, right? Yeah. Marketers, salesmen, publicists, everything, social media managers. So that, took a little research, but then I found that Twitter Spaces, these voice chats that we have on X, Twitter, are the place to be to connect with the community. Discords and DMs, being generous with people with their time. And I would say these are the first steps. Would you agree?
100%. My next question is, how do you sell music to people who are used to getting it for free? How did you learn that?
Wow, Josh, you're nailing this. How do I sell music to people that are used to getting it for free? Well, I talk to them and I tell them, that they've been stealing it until now.
You don't really
that it
do that.
Wasn't me. Huh?
It's more than that.
It's more than that. But I think the basic, we've both done countless Twitter spaces where we have talked about these topics over and over and over. And now I'm just breaking it down into one simple phrase. But when you think about it, you and me, probably, hosted thousands of Twitter spaces in the past couple of years. And every time we are reiterating this concept.
Yeah.
When you put a song out on Spotify, the artist is not in control. It is the only option. It is the monopoly of the music industry for every single artist on the planet. And we don't really have a choice. So to put it in simple terms, we're just doing that because there's no alternative. And we are being put on the same level as everyone else when we may not be on the same level as anybody else. And so really, music on Spotify is just being stolen, basically, by Spotify, not by people, by Spotify. And so a song, has a lot more than just the song in itself. It's got the artist and everything that it takes to create that song. And so what I've been doing is really trying to allow people into my process by showing them how I create, by giving them access to behind the scenes as much as I possibly can so that they understand how much work goes on beyond closed doors. And then they're willing to pay for something that they used to get for free.
Yeah, I think that's the key point, really. I don't think people buy your work because they feel bad about stealing music by listening to it on Spotify. But I feel like more it's because you inspire them, you value them, and they want to be a part of your journey in a big way. I mean, tell me about this yacht trip, your trip on a boat, which came about from one of your collectors.
Yes, that was definitely peak moment of 2023. One of the utilities that I offer with my NFTs, for people that may be listening, may not know what utility means, is think about when you have a Patreon and you want to reward people that support you, you offer perks, you offer different kinds of rewards. It's the same concept with NFTs, but you have to hold an NFT or certain NFTs or a combination of NFTs, very gamified, right? You have like 10 cards and you get a free extra one, things like that. These are all like marketing strategies as well, sales strategies that we've both learned in this process. And I believe the second biggest utility that I offer within my ecosystem is someone who holds a certain amount of certain NFTs can book me for one private show per year for free. And it's up to them, whatever it is that they want it to be. It could be maybe they run a business and they're doing an event, they need a performer, or they simply want to put on a show in their hometown and charge people to go to the show, and they want to pocket the money, they can, and they don't have to pay me because it's part of their perks.
Yeah.
And this one guy in our community, he decided to take me on vacation with his family because he was like, this is my favorite artist and I'm going on a cruise in the Bahamas and I would like her to be with us and perform for us. And so he did. He has to cover the cost, travel and accommodation, but the performance fee is waived. So he didn't pay for the fee for the performance.
That's amazing. So cool. Could you imagine that happening 2 years ago?
No, but in hindsight, I started doing this kind of thing back when I was 22 or 23 years old. I can tell you this really, really quick. When I played at South by Southwest, I think I was 23. It was 2018. I couldn't afford to go to South by Southwest. Obviously, it's really expensive. And I wanted to do a tour around it because my first EP, Half Moon Lane, had just come out. So I wanted to do New York, LA, Austin, Nashville, different things like that. And I needed money for it and I didn't have it. So I reached out to a fan who had booked me for his dad's birthday before, and he had paid me well to perform. So I reached out to him and sent him a business plan and a budget plan. And I said, listen, I need to do this tour, and this is what we're going to get out of it. And this is where we're going to stop and what we're going to do. If you give me the money to pay for this, for me and my manager and you, I'll take you with me so you can experience this. So in a way, I was already doing this before, years before, And I didn't even think about that while I was coming up with these utilities. But that was a very early stage of that.
Yeah.
right?
Fantastic. How did you even think about that? And I guess have the balls to even ask a fan like that? Because that's something I think as an artist, you really feel, you feel bad about that sometimes. But I mean, he really helped you on your journey that way. And I'm sure he was proud about it. And I don't think artists
Yeah.
really think about the joy that you give in that regard. But what inspired you to even do that and come up with a business plan, which is like so alien to most artists?
My mom.
Good old mum. Great. What a queen.
She has all the genius business ideas. I swear, I wouldn't be anything without her. She said, I was, again, struggle. I also asked, I did that. And then I also made another business plan and budget plan and went back to X Factor producers and asked for 16 grand so that I could produce my Half Moon Lane album. And they gave it to me. So she had all these ideas. She's like, listen, you have connections, you have fans, you have people that love you and support you. And you're legit. You're not a scammer, right? So just write it down. And this is going to help you reflect as well on what you want to do and why. And if it's a good idea, they'll believe in you and they'll help you. And they did. And so I owe it to her again. So
Also, I think this really drives the narrative of why NFTs are important, because they did that purely to help you, but they have nothing to kind of prove that they've done that as well. And that message gets lost. With a digital token, you could have literally given them a digital token for that investment to prove that they were part of your journey from the very beginning. And,
exactly. Yes.
I mean, have you spoken to that guy who helped you get to South by Southwest about what you're doing now, and if so, what has his response been?
Actually, Josh, I haven't. And I should.
Yeah. Well, it's like,
I really should.
airdrop him a little something just to say a big thank you from back then or something, you know?
I know. I should really do that. I don't think he even has a wallet, but I should totally onboard him and airdrop him something. Like you said, give him one of the current NFTs that are valuable and say, hey, here you are. You know, you've been part of the community. You're the original community member before it even started.
For real,
so.
yeah. What would you say is our biggest challenge as artists releasing music on the blockchain?
Biggest challenge once again is just trying, the sales. Selling is something we hate doing. You know, there was that TikTok or Instagram thing that came out recently of that girl saying, how are we supposed to sell our stuff, to market our stuff?
Right.
Us artists or,
When we're all weird.
sociopaths, like, like we're not good at this. Someone else is supposed to do it.
Yeah.
Someone else is supposed to do it for us. And in a way, I really agree. But at the same time, I think it's a little bit of a mental limit. You just have to find your personal way that you're comfortable with. And any other way is wrong and it's not going to work. So the hardest part is just finding what works for you and who you are. And that's going to not only become easy, but you're going to like it too. So that's the advice I would give, because selling all the time and having to deal with this whole gambling culture that there is also in NFTs, unfortunately, people will gamble on your music. They will try to flip your music for a profit. But you just kind of have to go with that. That's part of this right now. It's super early with the blockchain, so people think they can make a lot of profit. And it's kind of a cool thing. If someone can make a profit from your music, hey, nice. I don't think that's the primary goal, but it's something that we have to deal with on a daily basis and kind of accept it, which is sometimes hard. So
Yeah.
would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it depends on how badly do you want to do music. Like, you just need to, if you really, really want to do music, you could either, put it this way, I mean, you could either spend loads of time on music, but if you don't learn how to get it out there and how to market it, you're only going to be making music for a short amount of time. Or you put a percentage of that time learning the skills and the tools that you need to be able to make music for the rest of your life. And it is a bit heartbreaking as an artist. You do spend like a percentage of that time making music, and the rest is like doing everything else, like admin and all that malarkey. But I want to do music so bad. I never want to retire, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there, whether it means learning about business, all that shit I don't really want to do. But a lot of great stuff comes with that. Like, for example, meeting your fans, your community members, and seeing the world, going to these conferences, sell yourself, I guess you could say. I mean, I go there to kind of just connect with people, but you do have to kind of put on a bit more of a business head in those situations. But I get to see the
Sell
world
yourself.
yeah. Well, at least sell your music, you know? So, but I mean, like, think about it. Like, in the last 2 years, we've gone all over the world. We've gone to Miami, which I didn't even think I'd like, and I loved. We've been to New York, all over America, and it's just kind of, it's all I've ever really wanted to do. And of course, connect with people who connect with your music and that speak to their soul and have helped them do stuff. And it's like, I mean, for me, what got me to really do music is, well, when I knew I was never going to stop, is like, I had a fan come up to me after festival, and she had been committing self-harm for 2 years apparently, and she heard one of my songs, Mountains and Hurricanes, and she said she'd never done it since because of that. And I'm like, wow, if my music has that impact on people, then how could I ever stop, you know? And I'm sure you've had experiences similar to that too. And what's really powerful with Twitter is that we get to chat with them on a regular basis. So I can completely see why that also resonated more with you than TikTok. But yes, it's kind of weird just thinking back to when we started our first spaces together and just invited musicians to play their songs, and how we really connected with them because they also felt like they hadn't really been given a chance yet. And what's really beautiful about Web3, this new internet, it is more decentralized, and musicians aren't as dependent on gatekeepers as much as they used to be anymore, and you can literally do whatever you want. It's like, it's so powerful making music now and not feeling like you have to fit to a certain style or genre anymore. You can literally make whatever you want to do, and as long as you kind of show up and connect with people, people want to be a part of that in some way. And that's the thing, is I guess NFTs aren't for everybody, but for the super fans who do want to be a part of that and join you on tour, for example, it's a great way of kind of keeping tabs on who your followers are and how to incorporate them into your journey more. So yeah, I mean, what would you say if you're starting out today? What would you say is the best way to build a strong community in music?
In music or in music NFTs?
Both. I don't think they're that different.
Well, I wouldn't know how to necessarily build a community using the traditional tools. And don't get me wrong, Twitter is a traditional tool. But when you think of musicians in 2023, 24, automatically people think of reels, Instagram reels, and virality, right? People think of virality. And if you ask me, how do I become touring as well? Yes, touring, of course.
That was touring.
Touring is a great way.
But what the issue?
Yeah.
The issue with touring is that you physically have to travel everywhere, and using the internet, you can reach so many more people and potentially play bigger shows faster that way too. but of course might not be as rewarding. But carry on.
Yeah, no, you're right. Bigger, I mean, like you said, you have to physically be there and you don't really know how it's going to go, right? I think what you did with playing living room shows, that's pretty amazing. That's an amazing way to build community because you are basically doing what you're doing in Web3, but in real life and already establishing that intimate relationship with people, which I really think is what people want. Also in this day and age where we're so isolated, you know, and we all live on the internet, when people can connect with someone who makes magic, right? Because actually that's what musicians do. It's something that normal people don't have in their lives every day. And so that's very, very special. I think that's the key, whether you do it in living room shows or in your own way, by touring or online, and then translate it to touring. I think that's really the key. Be generous with your time. One way or another, you're going to have to be generous with your time, right? If you're traveling or if you're sitting on your computer, with yourself, like allow people into your world, and find a connection with them. People don't have a connection with a song that just pops up on their Spotify radio and they don't even know who it is and they have no way to be in touch. And the artist doesn't know who the listener is either.
Yeah, that's a big
So
one.
that's a big void. I think that it's intentional. You know, it's very intentional from Spotify because they have all the info, but they just don't give it to you or the fan. Whereas you want to be in control of that. You want to have that bridge between you and the person that resonates with your art. And once you establish that, that's going to be your first community member in one way or another. So, you know, on Christmas Day, I literally spent 2 hours DMing as many holders as I could, saying,
wow.
Merry Christmas. Thank you so much for everything. You know, and so many people were like, oh, wow, thank you so much for reaching out. That's very special. So
Really
little
is.
things like that takes time and it just takes commitment. But
Yeah, for sure. Do you think Spotify is here to stay? And do you see yourself ever releasing music there again?
I think Spotify or something like it is here to stay. But I don't think it's always going to be as relevant and as universal for everyone. My goal is to knock down that monopoly. I want to show that there are options that are different because not every artist is the same, which means not every artist needs the same strategy and is okay with the same tools. And so I almost want to create, and this is going to sound really bad, but I almost want to create a divide between artists that believe their music is worth more and they're willing to put in a certain effort into building a smaller but stronger and more sustainable community, because they care about those relationships more, and people that don't care about who listen to their music. And they're not making music that's meant to be timeless. And I'm not saying that with prejudice, you know, I'm not saying that's bad. I've met people that are like, music is literally something I do to pay my bills, and Spotify is working for me. And I don't care how it sounds. I don't care who listens. This is not meant to be forever. It's meant to be consumed and thrown away. Then put it on Spotify. Don't come clog up my blockchain, okay? Put it on Spotify, get it to McDonald's, that's fine. But I want there to be an acceptance. I want there to be an acceptance on the alternative option. Like you and me can put our songs in museums on the blockchain, you know, because we care more about stronger relationships and we want our music to last forever. So,
Yeah.
and if you ask me, should I put it on, will I ever put it on Spotify? Right now I would tell you no, but if I find a way to play Spotify to my advantage and to my community's advantage, you never know. So
yeah,
that's my answer.
It's interesting because I've had a conversation with my community, my Savage Council, and they're actually pro having my music on Spotify, because we don't have a platform like that where you can listen to NFTs as seamlessly as Spotify. I was actually thinking, a thought that just came up recently actually, is like, what if you leverage Spotify's marketing capability and release your new songs on Spotify temporarily to market it, but then take it down later?
Yeah, if you
What do you think about that?
things like that make sense if as long as it's intentional. You know, what's
Yeah.
important is that you know why you're doing it and you're going to get something out of it, and not just pray to the gods of the algorithm that this is going to make you a millionaire,
No,
because that's just not going to work. But that's the idea they sell you.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's really interesting to
for sure.
see how Spotify's evolved, or Spotify artists are evolving, where they're now releasing music there literally every week, which is crazy. And some of these songs are like a minute and a half now.
And they suck too.
Some of them suck. Some of them are great, and some of them are absolutely.
Well, that's the problem. If you're
fantastic.
forced to release one per week, it's gonna sound, I mean, I don't know, like maybe you're a genius, but not even Beethoven would release a symphony per week. I mean,
Well, especially if he's writing a full-blown orchestra piece, that's gonna take more than a week.
especially when he was deaf.
Yeah, oh my god, it doesn't need Spotify anyway.
Right.
So, tell me about your journey releasing your first music NFTs, the feeling you had when they were selling out, and the path that eventually led to a moonshot and another life.
Yeah, the process was fairly quick at the beginning because, I only had 6 months left to my own expiration date that I set to myself. So I was like, I need to rush here. I need to make this work before July 2022 because that's my deadline. Then I'm going to have to go to get a job. So yeah, I worked really hard for it. And when I first sold out my first 5 NFTs, it was a little tiny collection of 5. I couldn't believe it because the money that I'd made was like 1 million Spotify streams or something in like a day. And it was only 5 people that had bought those. And I couldn't fathom how, I believed in the value of what I was offering. But it was the first time that I saw so clearly that someone else also believed in it. And I didn't have to explain myself. This is why I did this song this way, or, this is why it's not on Spotify or whatever. It felt so natural and organic. And it felt that way all the way through Moonshot, which was my bigger collection, 2,500 NFTs. That took about 5 weeks to sell out. It was a lot of NFTs. But when I sold it out, I think it must have been one of the happiest days of my life because it was such a big achievement. Even if you sell 2,500 albums, I mean, that's a lot of albums, of physical albums, right?
Right.
Let alone NFTs that cost a lot more than an album, than a CD or whatever. And there's people everywhere posting it and knowing the lyrics to your songs. And then you meet them in real life and they're singing the lyrics to your songs at you. And so, right, the feeling that that relationship established was the best thing about it.
Man, Vio, I still remember our first NFT NYC after our panel, and you were playing at Rockwood and everyone was singing along to your song. And I think this was just after the pandemic as well. So it's like I hadn't had a live music experience like that before. And of course, you're such a good friend of mine as well. I was in literal tears just seeing everyone sing. Gosh, which song was it? Which song was it on? I think it was Moonshot.
Never Rarely.
That's it. Word for word. And I was like, I was just a wreck. I was like, Via, I'm so proud of you.
I know.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. They started singing. I was like, how do you know this song? Because the feeling, it's even better when you build a community online and everyone's in their house and you're not actually, you have a feeling of the impact you're having in their lives, But then when you get to experience it in real life and they know the song word for word, I was like, where did you hear this song? I was almost like forgetting everything that had happened, and I was unaware of the meaning that it had for them. And because I also think about this, if you install this kind of relationship and you're spending more on something, you're gonna care more for it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really a matter of educating audiences on the value of music and make them feel involved. And that moment was amazing, unforgettable. Probably that was the happiest day of my life, actually.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Me too. It was really special. I mean, that was the first time we had met our community members in real life for the first time. And for me, that was like, wow, my imaginary friends are actually real. They're actually real and they're all awesome. So yeah. Oh gosh, good times. And then you killed it with Moonshot. And then what inspired, I mean, how do you even scale up from that? How did you know what was next for you with your next collection, and why is Another Life the way it is? How did you come up with the concept? And of course, tell me a bit more about the songs too.
Yeah. So, well, it all started from the songs, really. And I think that's something that we shouldn't forget, that we're still musicians and we're not just salespeople that sell whatever they're assigned to sell. So this drive and everything around it comes from the love we have for our product, our music, right? And our art connected to it. So it really all started from there. I'd written some songs during that time and after I sold out that first collection, Moonshot, and they were all about how I was feeling in that very moment. And I wanted to record those in analog. So we did tape recordings for this, for these 5 songs over in Berlin. So we did, I don't know, 2 or 3 takes per song, mixed and mastered live, which is something that people don't usually do very much anymore because you have to, people say it's expensive to record with tape, but it's expensive if you have to do 1 million takes. But if you're used to just doing one good take, like we do on Twitter Spaces, so it was all derived from that experience too, then it's not that hard. And I wanted to make it as real as possible because of this narrative that I was trying to get across, which is we are real. We are real people expressing ourselves. And I wanted this record to portray that. And I thought the narrative of tape to blockchain was really cool because a lot of people think, oh, a technology is here to disrupt humanity and human connection. And I disagree with that. Blockchain is meant to enhance humanity. And so the contrast between the two opposites, but also very connected, a tape, it's just a string of information. And so is a blockchain. It's just the 2.0 version of it. So I wanted to really combine the two.
You also had one of your community members there for the recording, didn't you?
That's right. Yeah, Shar, who we both love.
Yeah.
She has the utility that she can attend to my studio recordings. And so she came all the way from America and attended the studio sessions with us. That was really cool. And then regarding the concept for the structure of the collection, I wanted to reward the Moonshot holders with a free NFT and match however many moonshots they had with One Another Life. So I gifted over 2,500 Another Life NFTs to the Moonshot holders. And the rest we sold in phases because it was a lot of NFTs. So we sold like 500, 1,000, and little by little got to the end. And I tried in terms of utility to gamify it even more and to make it complement what I was already offering with Moonshot. So, for example, the free concert utility wasn't there with Moonshot, but I made it so that if you completed both collections, then you could unlock that. So I used it to add even more exclusive perks to what I had to offer, and also to onboard more people because we have double the amount of holders with a new collection because it's double the size. And so, we went from like 700 to 1,400 holders, which, it's pretty cool. So.
Epic. And I guess what's next for you now? You're really exploring Bitcoin and NFTs on Bitcoin. Why? What's so special about Bitcoin ordinals, VA?
Ordinals. Ordinals. Okay, yes. I mean, the ordinals Bitcoin NFTs protocol is new, is only 1 year old. And I found out about it in February, but last year. But I was very busy.
Did you find out about it, VA, or did your mother find out about it?
It was me this time.
Yeah.
It was me. But I'm sure if I'd waited a couple of weeks, she would have. You know what I mean? Yeah, she's always ahead of me. Not this time. But yeah, I found out about it in February, but I didn't quite dive into it because I was busy selling my Another Life collection. But as soon as I was able to, chill for a minute around May time, I dove right in. I was like, this is so exciting. This is so early. This is 2 months old. I have to participate. I'm here in the right place at the right time. And I have music, and there's nobody else doing music on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is like the main blockchain. When you say blockchain to the general population, they think of Bitcoin. They don't think of Ethereum or Solana or anything. Yeah. And so it was only natural for me to think, because I think so much of my music, because I value it so much, I want some of it to be on the top blockchain, on the golden blockchain, they say. The unique thing about Bitcoin ordinals, Bitcoin NFTs, is that your data, so your song, your art, lives on the blockchain, which is a technical thing that maybe some people don't know. When you mint an NFT, you're creating a token through code. I didn't do that. We have a developer who does that with our instructions. You create a token through code, and then you embed a link into this token that points to a decentralized storage, like Google storage, but it's not Google. It's called IPFS. It's different. But it's a link that has content that's off chain. With ordinals, you can put whatever it is and imprint it on a piece of Bitcoin, on like a 1 cent coin. So imagine having a little coin that can play your song, and you can't delete it. It's going to be there forever. So I thought that concept reaffirmed even more my message, which is music is valuable and it is immutable and it's going to be there forever. It's also, quite inaccessible because it was hard for me to make. So yeah. I don't want to give it out to anybody just like that. It's very precious to me. So
how do you make it?
It was challenging because there are technical limitations. You can't put just any file size or any file type on the Bitcoin blockchain yet. So I think the limit is 400 kilobytes if you want to do it independently on your own. If you want to do the max, which is 4 megabytes, you have to run a node. And it's just very complicated things that I don't want to do. So I was trying to get, it's just outrageous. I mean, and it's also very expensive too. It would cost tens of thousands of dollars to do something like that. But so I wanted to stay under that 400 kilobytes limit, which is so small for a song. If you think about it, a song is like 60 megabytes or something, right? So I worked with a really great artist in the space. Jigsaw is his name. He's an artist and also kind of, he's very good at technical stuff. And we managed to compress a song that I'd written purposely for this and to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of my career, because it was 2023 and started 2013. And so, it was definitely a challenge. I think the song was kind of made for it. I don't think any song would work, because if you're happy, your song being lo-fi, that was the intention behind the song. I wanted it to be kind of sounding like that, like from an old record. Because the point is, this is going to be available in 150 years, and it's always, I want it to sound old from the beginning. I
Yeah.
don't, because it's not going to get ruined. I like when vinyl records become, grainy and like scratchy like that.
Right.
So I wanted my record to have that from the get-go. So yeah, we made it work. It was expensive, but I'm glad I did it. I did only one, and then we'll see what to do with it.
Right. And for context, for people listening to this, we've been releasing music NFTs on Ethereum so far. I guess you could say that Bitcoin ordinals are literally like digitally etching the music onto the digital coin, if that makes any sense to people who are not familiar with the blockchain technology. Do you see music coming to Bitcoin ordinals in a big way in the future?
I think Bitcoin ordinals is not necessarily a practical way to release music. It depends what you want, right? It just depends what you want to do. And I think that's the beauty in it. You have options, right? You have different canvases for different songs, for different projects. And so for this specific song, I thought Bitcoin was the best. But for my other songs, I'm happy I did Moonshot on Ethereum because I was able to onboard new people, more people. I have a bigger community, reward them, have that flexibility. And so I think artists will go to Bitcoin, but it's going to be a challenge. And it's going to be good because it's going to make them think. It's going to make them be very intentional. Before I do this, I'm going to have to know what my plan is. So, I had a plan before I inscribed it, before I put it on Bitcoin. I knew what I wanted to do with it already. I think, this is the first record on Bitcoin. There are some sounds that have been inscribed. Someone inscribed a fart, very early on, but I wouldn't consider that a song. You know what I mean? But I guess. But this is the first record, as we know, records with an artwork and a full song. And so I think it has a lot of value. I'm definitely not going to let it go for nothing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that, actually. I love the intentionality behind that and having to work with the limitations, which often is a good thing, I think, creatively as well. Right. And I think with technology as it's getting to where it is, there are almost too many options now. And sometimes that's worse as a creative, because if you have too many options, you get stuck because you don't know which direction to go to. There's definitely a lot of romanticism out of just, you only have this specific file size. You have to, like, you might even have to choose a section of the song instead of the whole song to keep costs down and whatnot. That's the thing, like, in this day and age, you do have options, and you can kind of choose whether you want to just batch release music on Spotify. Like, if all you love is just making music and just making as much as possible and just getting out there, great. But if you're a bit more of a perfectionist and stuff, then you can be a bit more particular, especially with blockchain technology in that way. What do you predict happening in the space, do you think? It's so hard to tell, of course, but what do you think is going to happen in this space? I mean, do you see NFTs as we'd known it 2 years ago sticking around as they are? What do you predict for you moving forward for music NFTs?
I think it's up to us.
Yeah.
I mean, NFTs as a whole, they're not going anywhere. I mean, it's such a genius thing. I'm not going to go into, the philosophical explanation of why I think it's so genius, but it's just very applicable to a lot of different things, not just music, not just art, but day-to-day things. Blockchain is just something that solves a lot of problems. Like, it has a purpose and has a use, and it's been proved. So I think it's absolutely not going anywhere. I think when it comes to music on NFTs, it's really up to the artists to understand it and use it at their own benefit. And I think it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time before people really understand the potential, but it's okay because it means we have more time to shape metas the way we want and kind of pioneer it, because when do you find yourself early in something? Maybe once in a lifetime, probably never, right? And I feel like we're very lucky to be in that situation that we can make an impact potentially on the future of the internet. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
So,
is it still early? Do people still have a chance to get in at this stage, or would you say it's too late?
No, I would say it's extremely early.
Yeah.
It's extremely early. Like you now have a chance to decide how you want it to be.
Yeah.
And nobody really can judge you for it. So
let's go. So how can people get in now and become a part of what you're doing and be a part of your journey? Where would you
Yes, good question. Yeah, well, first of all, I suggest people follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter. Join my Discord. Visit my website, first of all, violettazironi.com. All the information is there. All the links are there. I have my own NFT marketplace, meaning all the NFTs that I've put out are available for purchase on the secondary market through my own marketplace, through my website. And if you're looking to get into NFTs, do your research on how to download MetaMask wallet safely without putting yourself at risk. I actually think I should put a guide on my website. What do I do,
100%.
right? If I want to buy one of these NFTs and, but those are complicated things that I think experts should do. I would suggest go to MetaMask website, figure it out from there. It's very clear, pretty easy, fairly simple. But there are some people like Phil, right? In our community, he came from my traditional fan base, and
I didn't realize he was a Web 2 fan before he became a DJ.
Oh yeah, we met in 2020 in Hamburg. He came to my show in Hamburg, and that's how we met, and that's how he became part of my community before. Yeah, and he got into Web3 and into NFTs through me, learning, doing research, and now he is part of our community. So I would suggest that's the best way to get onboarded and learn little by little, no rush, learn, and then if you want, join.
Yeah, if it's for you. Vio, why is it more important for people to head to your website, to your own marketplace, rather than, say, a third-party NFT marketplace like OpenSea?
Well, first of all, I think it's just easier for someone who's never used Web3 tools. It's just so much simpler. If I tell them, go to my website, it's all there. It says NFT marketplace, and then it's much more clear than just having to go look for the collection on OpenSea or whatever if you've never seen it, never used it. So that's one, accessibility. Secondly, if you want to be seriously decentralized and artist sovereign, if I want to be in control of my prices, of my market, of my product, then I should be selling things from my platform, not from somebody else's platform, because then it wouldn't be any different than me relying entirely on Spotify, because they can do whatever they want with my product. And this is kind of what happened with OpenSea. They eliminated artist royalties, which is every time you have a secondary sale, you make a cut, a percentage. It goes back to you because you pushed that sale. And that's not the case on OpenSea anymore. And so I think that's wrong that they make decisions for us. And that's why I decided to create my marketplace, also to be able to have royalties if I choose to.
Yeah, no, 100%. Do you think creators' royalties are going to come back on third-party platforms?
I don't think so, honestly.
Really?
I don't think they will. And even if they do, I wouldn't trust that it would be forever decision. So
yeah,
it doesn't matter. It's important that we learn from this, that we can't trust. It's trustless, right? We can't trust, so we have to have self-custody and self-sovereignty and make all these decisions. It's a lot of responsibility, but it's also a lot of power that we have. So
Yeah. I think it'll come back though. I think it kind of has to for the space to survive, I think in many ways. And I think in the long run, it probably hurts platforms as well as the communities more than anything because of reasons like this. Like you create your own website, like we don't need them if really we can find ways around it, at least for future collections. But yeah, great to get your take on that. So Vio, what's next for you? Any upcoming projects or collaborations you're able to give a little sneak peek of?
Definitely collaborations in the new year. Wink, wink. Definitely collaborations. I don't know how much I can spill, but I it's 2024 is going to be a big year. I think I'm definitely planning to put out a lot of new music, a lot of new NFTs, more Bitcoin NFTs, travel a lot, hopefully a tour. Whenever I can't spill all the beans now, but again, I suggest follow me on my website. You can subscribe to my newsletter as well and stay up to date with everything. But there's going to be a lot coming up.
Well, Vio, you've been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for your time. Also, special shout out to you because this is our second interview because our first one sadly did not work out. The technology gods were against us that day. So thank you so much, Vio, and amazing to see how far you've come, and I think you're just getting started as well. Thanks for leading the way in the Web3 music space, and really, really wish you the best. Any last things you'd like to say before we close off?
Just thank you for hosting this podcast and having some of the pioneers on and doing your part to educate potentially newcomers, music lovers, music artists, technology lovers. This is super, super important. And I love seeing that each person in the community kind of tries to do their part in whatever way they're best at, they're good at, to spread the word. So I really appreciate this.
Of course. That's all for us today, guys. GN, and we'll be back